All right, hello and welcome to the 2022 Artstor user group meeting. We're glad to be here with you today. We are recording this webinar and you will receive a recording of it in a follow-up email. Today, we'll be focused on giving you an update of our work bringing Artstor to JSTOR. We'll also cover plans for the future of Artstor and our timeline for addressing and adding key features and functionality to JSTOR. But before we go further, let's do some introductions. So I am Alex Houston, I'm Senior Marketing Manager, and before joining Ithaca this past January, I oversaw marketing and strategy at the Seminary Co-op Bookstores, which is one of the largest academic booksellers in the world. I've existed on the edge of the academy for my entire life, with one of my earliest memories being sitting on a table at the front of a lecture hall next to a slide projector that my grandmother was using to teach art history at UMBC. Jordan, our events manager at Ithaca, will be in the chat to help direct your questions, and she'll also say hello to you all there. And I will next pass the mic to Peter to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Vlahakis, a Senior Product Manager working on the Artstor experience on JSTOR, and I've been at Ithaca for over 11 years now, working on both JSTOR and Artstor. Among other things, I recently led an effort to bring counter compliance to Artstor, and my role for integration now is really to ensure that all of our teams are working together to deliver a great holistic experience for teaching and learning. With images on JSTOR. And that starts with ensuring that we are seeking and listening to your feedback for both product development and communications. Dana?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Howard. I'm from the Partner and User Education team. I'm a former educator who used both Artstor and JSTOR in teaching. My colleague, Elizabeth Behrens, who's also an Artstor veteran and a forum veteran, is on the education team with me, and she is also communicating in the chat. So please feel free to answer questions. I'm going to turn off my camera now and let Alex take it.
Thank you, colleagues. So as part of the registration process, we asked you to share some of your top questions that you wanted to have answered during this session. So we collected those questions along with many we've received elsewhere to create, as best we can, a program that delivers the answers you want. We can't cover everything in 45 minutes, of course, which is why we sent a pre-event email that attempts to address some of those most frequent questions. If you didn't get the email or didn't get a chance to read it yet today, we will put it in the chat for you now. Our team will also, as Dana said, be answering questions during the presentation. We'll also answer them after, and feel free to just pop questions into the question box as they come to mind during the presentation. Once again, Q&A will also follow at the very end here. Finally, we'll be sending out a tidied version of the Q&A to all attendees after the event. All right, so our agenda for today. Before we talk about the future of Artstor, let's just talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start by articulating as clearly as possible why we are doing this work, bringing the Artstor experience to JSTOR. And we'll do that in the context of Ithaca, which is the parent company of JSTOR and Artstor, and Ithaca's not-for-profit mission. Next, we'll share how we've approached this work and how that impacts the development of the platforms you use. Next, we'll give an overview of when we hope to deliver key platform enhancements, as well as give a recap of those we've made over the past year. Finally, last but absolutely not least, we will take a look at what has come to the platform over the last year in the form of new collections, and we'll also share some insight into our collection strategy going forward. Last, as I keep saying, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So without further ado, we will get started. Okay, so on this slide, in addition to all of our all of Ithaca's icons here, including all of our services, you'll see Ithaca's mission statement. And you'll see there that the core of that mission and of our not-for-profit work is to improve access to education. In that work, we see ourselves as partners with librarians, scholars, and other education professionals and their institutions. Our work then is to promote and preserve the arts, humanities, and social sciences by making scholarly resources more effective and more affordable. So more specifically pertaining to Artstor, Artstor joined Ithaca 6 years ago. After a couple years of adding primary source collections to the JSTOR platform and gradually improving how content is viewed and used on JSTOR, in early 2021, we started this project of bringing Artstor onto JSTOR and optimizing JSTOR for images. Our reason for doing this relates to our mission. That is, we want to meet the changing needs of those we serve. So in this context, that means with the research and education landscape shifting, certainly at an accelerated pace over the last couple of years, institutions are increasingly looking for these streamlined, trustworthy, and cost-effective solutions to meet their needs. We're working to meet these shifting user needs by bringing Artstor's high-quality collections and key functionality to the JSTOR platform. And there they will be enhanced, maintained, and also we'll be able to preserve and expand access to that work by keeping our costs low. Next slide. There we go. So besides protecting Artstor content and enabling that long-term feature enhancement, bringing it onto the JSTOR platform expands its reach, making this invaluable visual resource available in the same place scholars discover book chapters, research reports, journals, and other images and primary sources. So that's the why. The how we approach this work is informed by our reason for doing so. So we knew going into this that Artstor isn't just about images, obviously, but also Artstor is this experience of using the images, whether that's downloading, citing, zooming, comparing, creating image groups, or sharing those image groups with others. Artstor is what users make of it and what they do with it. And in order to serve those users, we needed to really and deeply understand that experience. So to support our overall company-wide user-focused work, Ithaca has a user insights department. They have guided our work on the Artstor to JSTOR project. And overall, their chief purpose is leading research that informs this user-centric design strategy. So they work with our product teams to understand the user ecosystem, and then they generate and refine product solutions in partnership. In the past 2 years, just for a sense of scale, this team has undertaken 60 studies with 400 participants, and they've conducted 25 surveys among 60,000 participants. And just to give you a sense of who those people are, the majority of these research participants are platform users, and they are recruited for this work through surveys that appear in the platform. I'm sure many of you are familiar with these. So in the context of the Artstor project, our insights team set out, first of all, to consolidate and expand on years of Artstor user research. They wanted to gain a holistic understanding of the Artstor user experience beyond the anecdotal. So this would mean, this would allow them to then guide our product teams in focusing first on the needs of the Artstor users, and specifically on the use cases for teaching with images. In order to holistically understand the Artstor user experience, though, the insights team needed to learn what work is done with Artstor from a teaching perspective, how that work is conducted within the platform, and also why the work is important, both tactically and philosophically. With this information, Insights works with our product team to mock up solutions based on what they've heard, testing those solutions with more users to ensure the solution meets their need, rinsing, repeating, ad infinitum, the work is never done. Through the Insights team, our work on the platform is, in other words, thoroughly informed by user need and amounts to more than just copying features from one platform to the other, from Artstor to JSTOR. So as I said, this work is never done. It's a cycle. Our work on Artstor and elsewhere in our practice, this user-centered design practice, we just never stop. So this is why our platform changes in often subtle ways. We make small tweaks rather than have big releases. This is to make sure that users have improved functionality at their fingertips as soon as it's ready, but it's also so that we can make changes based on immediate feedback rather than release something sizable that might miss the point completely and then take a long time to correct as we try to figure out how to rescale things. The user-centric development cycle pertains only to smaller platform features and functions, I must stress. When it comes to a platform changing in a major way, like retiring the Artstor platform, we know you need clear communications and timelines. And on that note, it is time to address the elephant in the room. And here's an elephant in our virtual room. So before Artstor is retired, We've said before that we will provide ample warning before sunsetting Artstor. We want to give some substance to that phrase, ample warning. With it, we mean we will give you at least 6 months notice. We'll ensure that that timing is not disruptive to the standard academic year. We can then assure you that in that context, you will have a summer, 2023 or later, during which you can complete all of the migration work you need to on your end from Artstor as a platform to JSTOR as a platform. Now, we've made a lot of progress over the past year, and we're excited to tell you more about it, as some of my colleagues will do shortly. And we invite you to check out that progress to see if JSTOR as a platform meets your needs for teaching, working with, using images in whatever respect for your research or classroom use. But we also know there's a lot left to do. To stay true to that user-centric approach, we have significant work to be done, which my colleagues will also address. So we will ensure before making a retirement announcement that the JSTOR platform is absolutely fully ready to support teaching with images, sorry. And to this point, I will finally hand things off to my colleagues, Dana and Peter, who will give you those overviews of what's new on JSTOR since our last user group meeting and what's coming. Among other things, this will give you a better understanding of the changes we're committed to delivering before retiring. And here's Dana. We'll let her take over.
Thank you, Alex. I'm so impressed with all you've been able to do since January. It's so great to have you aboard. So platform enhancements. We have, I'm sorry. The process of, I've lost, excuse me, I've lost a part of my notes. We have broken down the experience on both platforms into 3 general, broad, and overlapping categories: search, discover, curate, and present. The process of search and discover, which we've enjoyed on Artstor, needed to be possible for images on JSTOR. I'll be honest with you, as a long-term Artstor user, my first thought when we started talking about bringing Artstor collections onto JSTOR was that I did not want images cluttering, I didn't want text cluttering up my image searches. Well, user research confirmed that other people didn't want that either. So a separate image search path was designated on the JSTOR platform. This image-centric path can be executed in 3 ways. The image tab from the search bar allows you to quickly get started. Images from either the browse or the search drop-down menu will take you to a dedicated image page. And then the image tab on the advanced search page, located under the search drop-down menu, will allow you to, sorry, my notes were going away again. The image will, allow you to have a more constructed search experience. Of course, this does not preclude searching for both images and text-based content. It is just that often you are gathering images for a presentation and not interacting with text. So we wanted to make that possible. Now, the image search bar will appear on any page on JSTOR. That bar you can tab over to images, and as you begin to type your search, you'll notice you're given the option, not a requirement, but an option to narrow your search right there from the bar. So in this example, I'm narrowing to Frankenthaler, as creator. Once you have your search results, you'll see something that looks familiar from Artstor. It is the Refine Results sidebar. In the JSTOR Refine Results sidebar, we've moved the date range up in order to allow you to change the dates readily and easily as you're searching through your results. And then we've also added a search within box at the top of the Refine Results sidebar in order to make it easier for you to narrow your search. Now, in addition to all of this, JSTOR image search has a continuous scroll function, so you can continuously scroll through and refine one after the other on this page. And so it makes it pretty quick to narrow down to the images that you want. Now, let's turn to browsing. Another goal has been to make the platform intuitive for students. We wanted to make it so that faculty and librarians can send students to use the same platform for their text research and their image research work. We learned from Artstor that students without basic foundations in art history really struggle to discover content. This dedicated image browse page allows you to explore either by entering a search term or not entering a search term, and narrow by classification or by geography. And Peter will explain more about some additions to this functionality that we're planning for later. Recently, we have an enhanced collections page to allow for a more granular search within collections or groups of collections. And at users' request, it's now possible to also search only content the contributing institution has made open. Now, let's turn to the actions of curating and presenting. The process of creating and organizing image groups that has been the backbone of teaching with Artstor has been important for us to design an experience around on JSTOR. That includes activities behind these processes. What you are used to in Artstor as image groups are folders within your personal workspace on JSTOR. In fact, you can copy existing image groups from Artstor to become folders in your JSTOR workspace. So the workspace is where you can create folders of images, but also include text-based content if you'd like. You can share, download, and present directly from this workspace. So how do I save to my workspace? Well, I can save from the thumbnail page or from the image viewer. I found that saving from the thumbnail page is easier on JSTOR because the particular collection the work is housed in is featured with the tombstone metadata beneath the thumbnail, directly beneath the thumbnail. And that allows me to quickly discern a potentially high quality image directly from the thumbnail. For example, many of us know that the Open Metropolitan Museum of Art images are generally incredibly good, high quality images. But I can also open it up in the IIIF viewer so that I can see the metadata associated with the image and choose to save, share, cite, or download from there as well. So what are we doing to make this easier for you? Well, we're starting, oh, I'm sorry, skipped a slide. So since no one wants to recreate all the image groups on a new platform, we've created an image group copy tool that should help established Artstor users copy any of their groups over to JSTOR to try the workspace out. To make this easier to get started, everyone who has an Artstor login also has a JSTOR login. In other words, your logins are interchangeable. Once you've copied a few groups, we invite you to experiment with the workspace and having folders rather than image groups. And after you copy a group on to JSTOR, you can add either text or more images in that folder or edit it in any other way. And you can do all this without changing what you have on Artstor. So there's no danger of your existing image group being altered by your experimentation on JSTOR. So What are we doing to make this easier for you? We are starting a regular bi-monthly webinar. Our colleague Jordan will be sharing the link to that in the chat. The first one is going to be in May 13th. If you sign up, you'll automatically receive a link to the recording, so you don't have to be there live. But if you're there live, we will take questions at the end of the presentation. And you can also always share the recording with anybody, any of your colleagues, if you'd like. We have been creating a suite of video tutorials that you can get to from either our JSTOR Success Guide for librarians or by subscribing to the playlist on YouTube. Jordan is putting those links in the chat as well. And we are creating a slide deck that you can copy and adapt to your own audience and your own pedagogical goals in the form of a workshop or perhaps a presentation. We'll make that widely available as a Google presentation that we will keep up to date for you. Now, this welcome mat page is a platform hub of resources for exploring images on JSTOR. Jordan will share a link to that in the chat. This page is where sort of everything comes together in terms of making this easier for you. It provides answers to top user questions and Artstor on JSTOR feature comparison chart that actually Peter will refer to in a minute. The chart also shows the status of some key Artstor features in terms of their status on JSTOR. And Peter will speak to that now on the platform. Upcoming enhancements. Peter, can you say hello?
Hi, thank you, Dana. And thanks for, continuing to do such a great job of covering all of the platform work that's been going on for the last year. If you've been attending our monthly webinars, you know that Dana's been a rock and, making sure that we're sharing all of the updates in effective ways. And to Alex for talking about our user-centered design approach. You can go to the next slide. So I want to stress that, while we have come a long way, and especially in the last few months, there's been a lot of changes. We know that there's still plenty of important work to do, as well as opportunities to address some of the longer running issues that have existed on Artstor that haven't gotten the attention that they've deserved. And it will be the continuous feedback from you and our community that tells us when we're there. That said, we are learning that for some institutions, instructors, and researchers, the experience as it is now meets most of their needs and already offers some exciting benefits, especially around ease of use and thinking about it as a one-stop shop for text and image content. However, we also know that that's definitely not the case for everyone. It does not meet everyone's needs yet. And as we continue to work with our users and community to improve that experience, we're encouraging you to continue sending us feedback. We've had such a tremendous engagement from the community so far, helping us think through problems and calling out areas that need attention. We encourage this, and you'll also see some of these in-platform requests for feedback that Alex had mentioned, and encourage you to interact with those as well if you'd like. So now that Dana's covered the changes from last year, I'll take us through what's coming up. And understandably, we've had a lot of questions, not just about what's happened, what's changed, but what's coming up in the future. And I really feel like we can do a better job of being transparent about what's coming up, what we're working on, and why, and when some of these things, when you should expect to see some of this. And so I'm going to follow the guidelines that we're kind of setting on this new feature comparison chart that's going to be available on that welcome page that Dana just went through. And I'll talk about the work as either in progress, meaning we are actively working on it, or in planning, which means we are in a bit of the earlier stages of development. And what we're saying here is you can expect the in progress work sooner. And in fact, what we mean by that is it will be ready by the fall semester, with enough time to review the new instructional and support materials that we provide. The in planning work, and most of what you'll see here is actually in progress. For the couple things that are in planning, that'll take a bit longer. We don't expect that by the fall, but it's again in those earlier stages. And it's important to note that during both, thinking about these kind of two different categories, testing and gathering feedback is critical for both of them. So just because we're starting to actually work on some of these things doesn't mean we're not looking for additional feedback on that. Also important to note that not everything that I'm going to cover in the next few slides will make its way to this chart, because we don't want to overwhelm users with updates. But you can stay up to date with all of this information by visiting about.jstor.org/Artstor updates. That link should be in the chat, or attending the upcoming bi-monthly webinars where we'll check back on these things. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So a few important enhancements in flight for search and discover. The first is supporting browsing within the Artstor collection pages on JSTOR, for example, the Met collection page, by classification, geography, and date. This is similar to how it works on Artstor, and the benefit that we know is important here is we have to continue to meet the existing needs of our Artstor users and their expectations for visually exploring within the collections without requiring a search term. Also important to think about it as offering the same refinement capabilities between search and browse, where we often see users kind of go back and forth between the two. Then the next item on here is around some improvements we're doing with search faceting. So right now, you're restricted to country or geography. We want to include regions and countries to offer more granularity working within geography. And we also want to make some improvements to how users are able to refine results by date, both at the data layer and the interaction of the filter. Kind of a new benefit I see here is we're doing some research and design to think about how we can make it easier to work with long lists of filters easily and efficiently. So as that list on the left side grows and grows and grows, we know that we can offer a better experience for how people interact with that to really make a nice seamless experience for refining results. And then finally, what we're saying is the Artstor images on the JSTOR platform are the same high quality images you'll find on the Artstor platform with the same download resolution. But we know and have seen examples where this isn't the case yet, and that's not expected, and we're working to identify and address those inconsistencies across the board, so that you can be confident that you're getting the great download resolution that you've always expected from Artstor. And again, each of these three are in progress and should be available by the fall. As with these next three as well, in fact, the last 4 months have been, we've made leaps and bounds for supporting teaching with images on JSTOR. We've had a lot of great feedback here, and we know that there's still work left to do, especially on the teaching front and instructional tools. Most of these or all of these are within the workspace that we've been talking about. The first is the ability to download images in a workspace folder to a zip file. So this is very similar to thinking about the downloading images from image groups on Artstor to a zip file. And the benefit here is just being able to deliver those raw images for creating teaching artifacts and doing that in a much faster and easier way to get people what they need and on their way more quickly. The next follow-up we're doing to some work that came out just a couple of months ago is integrating compare and present mode. So we have both compare and present as building blocks on the platform, and now they're ready to be combined because we know that people need the ability to compare images while they're presenting, and also keep focus on that first image when they are selecting the next images to compare. So some extremely important improvements there to how that functionality works. And the last is another area in Workspace where we want to make it easier for people to organize and curate content by allowing them to do things in bulk. And so those are three things that are also coming by this fall. Next slide, please. I want to talk about image metadata improvements next. Some of this might be a bit more familiar to forum participants, but it's such an important area for us to get right. Addressing some of these things and some of these opportunities really creates a better experience for all of your users, which is why I wanted to touch on this here. So the first is, we've had a lot of good feedback around what the image metadata looks like on the item page now. And I want to acknowledge that, how it exists on Artstor now was developed through years of collaborations with the community. I look at Artstor as 15 years of product development experience there, and it's important that we get this right on JSTOR. We're not there yet, but we have some work that I'm really excited about in progress to optimize that sequence and display of metadata on the image page. So just a super quick example, that could be like title, creator, and date. Should always be near the top to support faster, accurate, reliable assessment of image needs. Again, that's something we are working on now, and we really want to make sure that's in great place for the fall. Such an important part of the experience. Another thing that we've got in flight is sort of faithfully representing cataloging decisions, where we have some image content where there are multiple titles for images for a variety of important reasons, and we need to faithfully represent those on the JSTOR platform, and that's not currently the case. So we're working on doing that now, whether they were delimited with pipes or semicolons or what have you, making sure that that data makes it to the JSTOR platform and is presented in a way that is in line with the assessment needs. And next up is an opportunity that we're going to tackle from, frankly, years of feedback on Artstor about the use of Artstor classifications on JSTOR. We now have an opportunity to offer a bit more granularity beyond what is there now for the Artstor classification. So as an example, currently we have some classifications that are pretty broad, don't provide quite enough granularity for filtering to the desired set of content. An example could be, decorative arts, utilitarian objects, and interior design. Right now is one classification. You'd probably make the argument it should be 3. So we're starting to look at that and find ways to do a better job of the classification and how that's leveraged both in search and browse. And then finally, we've been alerted to some issues around image citations. We offer a variety of different export formats, MLA, Chicago, APA. We need to make sure that regardless of the format the user selects, that the metadata within the citation is accurate and doesn't include anything extra. And so we're going through that process now of making sure that's the case across the board. Go on to the next slide. Okay, a few other areas I want to touch on before we end with upcoming work. The first is the integrated JSTOR admin site. So whether you participate in JSTOR and Artstor or just Artstor, we need to make sure that you have access to the tools and data you need on JSTOR when you're ready to come over to the JSTOR platform. We've been showing work kind of periodically over the last year. We're getting very close on this. The site is actually live now for Artstor administrators. We can share that link. And I encourage you to just go in there and check it out. If you are an Artstor administrator, you do not need to do anything to access this new integrated admin site. You already have your existing login should work. And of course, if you need help, JSTOR support's a great resource for that. And our goal there is to have that site serving all administrators on JSTOR by the fall. And it's I want to point out that we will have additional support and training materials, thinking about that back to school time of year, that we'll send out so that with plenty of advance, so that you can be ready to look at that new site if that works for you. Another area we've had some questions around discovery service integration. There's a bit of a longer arc there, but we do have work now in progress to make sure that we can incorporate the Artstor records from the JSTOR platform into third-party discovery services. And we know that's really important, that you continue to be able to get value back from those investments when thinking about Artstor on JSTOR. And one of the parts that I want to figure out is, as we start to see more and more institutions express interest in migrating sooner than later, how can we in the short term make sure that you're able to continue to get, continue to leverage your discovery services for for Artstor and pointing to the JSTOR platform. So there's a short term and kind of a longer term track there. We are talking to folks like EBSCO and their EDS product to think about, what the long-term plan looks like for representing Artstor on JSTOR within their services. And finally, Artstor is not just images. There are other media types there that are really important. What I want to say is our focus now has to be on creating a great experience for teaching and learning with images. We're getting closer, but we're not there. So we're going to stay focused on that. But we are thinking about how and when to support the other formats. And we'll have more to share about that over the summer and fall. So I think that is it for me. I'm going to hand it back over to Alex to talk about ADL collection development.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Dana, for both of you for sharing those exciting updates and for all the expertise and enthusiasm you brought today and in general to all of the work we've been doing. So I am here delivering this collection update on behalf of Nancy Minty, our collections editor at Artstor. She is enjoying a vacation day today, but I will do my very best to fill her sizable curatorial shoes. Okay, next, great. Okay, so in light of what we've talked about so far, which has been almost entirely focused on the platform, I want to turn our attention to our collections and emphasize the fact that we are continuing to build them. That is, Artstor, the platform, may be retiring, but the Artstor collections are not. They are growing. And as we grow them, we are also striving to improve the diversity of our content offerings. Our collection strategy is also driven by our commitment to promoting the use of images in disciplines beyond the arts, and at the same time, in increasing the visibility of visual resources and related scholarship by doing precisely this sort of interdisciplinary content. Okay, sorry about that. All right.
I'm sorry, was that me, Alex? Did I hit, I was reading the question box and I lost you.
I just saw that too. It looked like maybe I had muted myself, but looks like
There
maybe.
you are.
Okay, all good?
Yep.
All right. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so on this slide we have some images representing some of the collections we added in 2021. The collections represented here and generally follow directly from one or both of those touchstones of diversity and multidisciplinary relevance that I just spoke to. So starting with the central image there, which is a piece by Arthur Szyk, who's some of his collections we have added to the platform recently. Arthur Szyk was a Polish Jewish artist who came to the US during World War II and whose work advocates for religious tolerance, racial equality, and human dignity, protesting against fascist regimes through political satirical drawings, illustrations, and paintings. The Szyk collection also includes some really magnificent illuminated manuscripts. Those celebrate Jewish subjects and history. And with this, we're very excited to have expanded our previously underrepresented offerings of Jewish art. We also acquired a number of photographs by Barbara Anello, a photographer whose collections depict Khmer monuments and heritage, as well as the work that Cambodian archaeologists, architects, and heritage preservation professionals are doing to preserve that cultural heritage. In 2021, we also acquired an additional 130,000 photographs from Magnum Photos. These journalistic photos include quite a lot of documentation of present-day concerns. So that includes things represented here, such as the murder of George Floyd, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic, which you see represented on the right there. We also added more collections from institutions like the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. So seeing as we are somehow already nearly halfway through 2022, here is what we have going on so far this year. We're really, really excited to have added 2 collections pertaining to African American history and culture. So those are the Smithsonian National Museum of African American Culture and History and the Schomburger Center. Both of these collections are open, and when I say that, I mean they are accessible to anyone. You do not need to be signed into the platform to access these images, and they are available for reuse for whatever. There are no rights associated with these images. So these open collections reflect that mission, that is to make scholarly resources more effective and affordable worldwide. We've also brought in new images of global art from ArtResource. These include full views and comprehensive details from some of the most celebrated painting and calligraphic scrolls at the National Palace Museum in Taipei. This is a collection we had been working on getting for a number of years, so it's really exciting to have those finally with us. We also added more from Magnum, which is always great. And in addition to that important current event-related journalistic work, their collection includes a lot of really great work of global and global relevance and diverse representation. So represented here, I believe we have of note is Ernest Cole, South Africa's first Black freelance photographer, as well as Gila Kurek, a photographer of African-American jazz musicians touring Europe. Finally, we will, I believe, have on deck an addition of tens of thousands of images of decorative arts coming from Cooper Hewitt. These will help broaden our currently not especially robust collection of decorative arts images. So we're very excited to have again that broader array of content available to our users. So while these new collections are certainly essential in delivering that diverse content and diverse content types that I've spoken about, we also want to make sure we are surfacing content that is already available, but might, for whatever reason, not be readily apparent to users. So to this end, we've added some recent posts on the Artstor blog that bring together these new and older collections across our platforms. And these blog entries speak directly to issues and topics that users have requested. So you'll see here represented, we have women's studies, we have environmental studies, and we have Black history. All right, and with that, we are done with our formal presentation. Thank you so much. We, of course, invite you all to stay for questions. If you are going now, there is an exit survey that will pop up once you leave the webinar. Please tell us what you think. We also want to remind you to contact support@jstor.org if you have feedback on the platform changes as you experience them. Again, we want to hear these things live. And we are very interested in making sure we're meeting your needs. That feedback does get recorded and forwarded to the right team for further investigation. I was going to invite Peter and Dana to turn their webcams on, but here they are. So we're all here and ready to address questions.
Okay, there's a couple that I don't know if you were looking at it. While I was getting distracted, I noticed a really great one. First, will all the current classifications still appear even if some are split out? As you were mentioning, Peter, that the classifications like of decorative arts, otherwise this will negatively affect those of us who have large numbers of records with, this is a forum user, of course, those of us who have large number of records with those classifications. So can you address that one? That's a concern I'm seeing.
Yeah, what I can say is we do not have that detail figured out, but I would expect that whatever we decide to do, it does not negatively affect large amounts of records that have been cataloged. Our goal with anything should be, to prevent rework, lots of rework, republishing on behalf of our institutions. So that's something that we think about as part of everything that we do. I'd be happy to follow up with that question afterwards and hear more about that. I think that'd be good for us to hear about, a bit more about that concern. But I know that we aren't yet at the stage of like, how is this implemented on the interface?
And then Another question about the additional media types. I know that this person shares my love of some of those other media types, like our favorite old QTVRs. The question is, a lot of folks feel the additional media type is so essential, it is a deal breaker. We definitely like to hear more as soon as that is further along in planning.
I hear you loud and clear, and I'm excited to share more when we have that. Again, I want to make sure that we are doing a great job with the image content, but we are already in discussions about what's next, and feedback from the community again will be big there, and we will share that as that conversation evolves. And we have more of a plan for how we're going to engage with the next types of content. But absolutely, view it as essential as well.
Here's a thank you, Peter. I just was reading another question that I think is really valuable to get a very public answer about. And we might ask Elizabeth to unmute herself for this one. About the transition from Artstor to JSTOR, do you have a plan for automatic data migration for content from contributors/institutions? Or should each institution publish their collections manually?
Sure, this is Elizabeth. I can chime in. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, I was just typing an answer to this one in the chat. So we don't have a plan for automatically migrating institutions' collections over to JSTOR. You can easily do this yourself by logging into Forum and setting up a new target to publish to JSTOR from Forum. So if you go to your existing project in Forum, go to the targets area and set up a new JSTOR target, and then you can immediately publish the collection over as a new JSTOR collection. And of course, if you have questions about how to do this, you can contact the support email that's on the screen right now. But it's just like setting up an Artstor target. If you're familiar with that, it's just setting up a new JSTOR target instead.
Yeah, when we were at Arliss, you showed me how to do that pretty quickly. So once I saw it, I could do it really quickly. I just had trouble finding it. But you can reach out to support and they will send you a quick sheet on doing that.
Yep.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Here's one. For new subscribers, do you recommend learning to use only the JSTOR platform? Going forward, how will pricing be impacted? I will answer the first half of that and ask Alex to take the second half of that. I think that the JSTOR platform is almost ready for prime time. And I think for students particularly, it's much easier to use than the Artstor platform. So I would say give it a try and assess it yourself to see if you think you should just work on JSTOR or work on both for the time being. But I think if you're new, you'll find the JSTOR platform a little more intuitive. Alex, the second half?
The pricing bit, yeah?
The pricing, yeah.
Pricing bit, very good. Yeah, so I'll point quickly to the pre-event email that we also did share in the chat that does give you some more details on how our pricing is working overall, as well as what the different access looks like. We understand that this is confusing with the two platforms and billing and related questions and concerns. So I do want to make clear that there will not be, you will not also be billed for JSTOR. Your Artstor subscription does immediately provide you access to that Artstor content on JSTOR. It is not a separate subscription that you are required to set up or pay for, which I hope answers the question, but please let me know if it does not.
Thanks, Alex. Here's a question that is, I'm not sure if we can answer it live, but I want to read it in case we can. If not, we'll follow up. We're preparing to migrate users from a local platform to Artstor and JSTOR, Artstor and JSTOR Forum this summer. To help us assess whether we put them into Artstor or straight onto JSTOR, please could you highlight the Artstor features that won't be available in JSTOR September 2022? I'm trying to think. Peter, can you address that one?
I mean, so much of, you know, what was covered in the platform coming soon work, that is a lot of the gap that we see, in addition to a couple of the important improvements that we're making. And that will be ready by the fall, by September. So beyond that, you know, there's the question of new media types. There are probably some other, you know, to give you a more comprehensive answer, I'd probably want to follow up with you offline. But, you know, and that really, you know, again, encouraging you to take a look and see what if the experience meets your needs. We don't want to be the judge of that. We want you to, though we know that, again, there's still important work to do. But a lot of that is queued up to be done by the fall semester, because, you know, we know how important these things are to have going into the start of the school year.
Thank you, Peter. Here's another one. Will controlled terms in English, like the art and architecture thesaurus, be discoverable in different languages?
Sorry, I was finding my mute button. Discoverable in different languages. Sorry, could you just repeat that? I want to make sure I understand the question correctly.
So the art and architecture thesaurus controls the, will those terms that are used to help people find items with those particular subject items or terms, will that be available in other languages? I'm thinking yes, but I could be wrong.
And that's on the JSTOR site.
Yes.
Okay. I think so, but I don't want to give an incorrect answer here. I want to confirm that.
Great.
No, I'm still trying to get my head around everything that's going on. So I'd rather give an accurate answer than be a little unsure.
I think we all appreciate that, Peter. Thank you. Here's a good question. Will the 6-month transition period begin before or after the addition of new media types? So it's that other than images question. Will we say we're ready before other media types are available other than images?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know that we've made that determination yet. I mean, I think what we're hearing from the community is they're essential, and that we need to support them. Whether or not we need to not give the notice before they are fully supported, I don't know that we've figured that out yet. The real thinking around the 6 months is to make sure that institutions and users have plenty of time to understand, review, migrate to JSTOR. So I don't want to promise a sequence there that we're not ready to commit to yet, but I think that's a great question. And what I hear is, you know, what are the conditions that need to be met before we say, okay, it's 6 months. Want to make sure this is the scenario, or, you know, this is where the platform's at. I could easily see us. I mean, the work to improve will never stop. We will continue to do that well beyond, you know, the 6 months. And so, you know, I am sure that improvements, new things will happen as those months progress. When that 6 months starts, what that work is, I'm not sure yet at this time.
Okay, scrolling
Dana,
down.
can I jump in for 1 second? I have an addition to my earlier comment about how easy it is to set up a target to JSTOR. I did want to remind people also that if they want assistance in publishing their collections over to JSTOR, all they have to do is reach out to us using the support email that's on the screen right now, and we can easily help them publish over to JSTOR if they don't have time to do it themselves, or if they don't want to do it themselves. We can do this work for them.
Great. That's important. Thank you. Yes, I remember you saying we could do that. Here's a question. I really enjoy the ability in Artstor to search without a keyword, but browse by a combination of classifications, geography, date, etc. Will that remain in the JSTOR interface? You can do that in JSTOR with advanced search.
It sounds like the question relates to that work that we're doing now to bring the facets to browsing, the geography, region, date, classification facets to browsing. So
yes, and currently it's not possible. You have to have a search term in advanced search, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yep. And that was the point around, being able to support that and browse so that users don't need to enter a search term to be able to do that refinement.
The JSTOR target question, Elizabeth, I think this one's for you. Will the JSTOR target be target to include image download size options and collections rights statements? Are there plans to make the project fields for mapping to the JSTOR target more image friendly?
Maybe Peter can help me with this. I know that development is actively going on to improve the JSTOR target and download settings. But I know we've recently spoken internally about the image download size options. So I know work is undergoing to improve this experience. I can't say specifically what's happening, but I don't know if anyone else here can, but I know we are talking about image download size options very recently internally and making those more similar to the options that currently exist in Artstor.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Great. Okay. I think we're getting towards the end of the questions. Someone help me out if I'm missing something important.
I think I see a question about the images in published articles in JSTOR.
Oh, that is something that keeps coming up. Yeah, can you address that?
We've had a few. I mean, that is a super exciting opportunity. We've had actually a lot of questions about this. We don't. This is not work in progress, but it's something that we've talked about several times, is trying to line up for later on this year. So I don't have a commitment to that yet, but we're very interested in it. We see a lot of value in that, and that's something that hopefully we can have as the next bi-monthly and the next few webinars that we have. We'll have more of these things that are kind of in the earlier stages. Have more information on that, but I see that as an opportunity that we need to look at very closely, just because it's such a nice fit for the integration, and there's just been so much interest in that from the community.
Yeah. I'm excited about the possibility of that in terms of teaching.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything else, folks? We're at 2 o'clock. I don't want to keep people, but I also don't want to ignore any important questions.
I think we got everything.
And can you share exactly what you're going to follow up with, Alex?
Yes, sorry.
In the follow-up email.
I was just making sure that we hadn't missed anything. Yes, so we will send a follow-up email. This will include a webinar recording, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning. And it'll also include some tidied version of this Q&A that we keep looking at off screen and are responding to. So we want to make sure that you all have these answers at your fingertips, and that'll be a nice supplement to that pre-event email where, again, we just really want to get the answers in front of you. We want to be transparent, and we want to give you all of the information that you need to do the work that you bravely do out there in the academic, scholarly education fields. We're really grateful for all of that. And if you do have other things, you'd like to see included question-wise in a follow-up email, feel free to drop them in before you leave the chat. And again, use that survey to give us some feedback, and we hope we gave you answers and help, and maybe even made you a little excited about the future today.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And Alex, thank you for jumping right into webinars so early in your tenure with us. Really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you to my excellent guides and to everyone for attending.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Okay, take care.